It's been, this show has been really fun for me to put together. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to focus my time and my brain a little bit on the art that's being made here in Memphis and in every form that it's being made here in Memphis. That's been really exciting for me to see the diversity of art that's being made here and get to shine a little spotlight on some artists that maybe you didn't know before, and hopefully you'll want to keep getting to know after you come to see the show. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Oh Lord, I have a bunch of screens okay. All right, Margarita, how does it look?
Looks great.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, so this is Memphis 2021. This is this exhibition that we've put together. And we are really proud of it. I hope that you will come to see this show. I think it's one of those things that you kind of need to see it. It's just our galleries look so exciting, so joyful, so colorful, that I think it's one of, definitely one of those shows you got to experience for yourself. Okay, now, Margarita, okay. Yep. For any of those who don't know the Dixon's commitment to regional contemporary art, one of the best things that Kevin Sharp, our director, did in 2007 when he arrived, I think it was pretty clear that the Dixon was not necessarily the most, in touch organization with our own arts community. I feel like we had kind of become separate from our contemporary arts community. And one of the great ideas he had was to take these two galleries right off the entrance to the museum, the Mallory and Würzburger galleries, and devote them to regional contemporary art. So as Margarita said, we did our first show back in 2008 with Jed Jackson. He always have a special place in our heart because he was our first Mallory and Würzburger artist. And since then, we have done more than 50 exhibitions in that space. And it's really reconnected us with artists here in our own community. And it's been great for me, just personally, it's been a gift to me, I think, to get to know all of these artists and their work and become friends with them and form these really kind of long-lasting friendships and partnerships and collaborations with all different types of artists. So I'll point my little arrow right here on this square, which is our current Mallory and Würzburger show, Brittany Boyd Bullock. And I hope you all will come see that too. Brittany is awesome. She's a really talented artist, and her work has really animated the Mallory and Würzburger galleries. So that's been fun. Okay, so we've had this, the Dixon has had this kind of long-term commitment to showing regional contemporary art. And so when it was time for us to start planning the 2020 Memphis Flower Show, so we're going to go back in time a little bit, we were thinking about 2020, and we work really closely with the Memphis Garden Club on these exhibitions. Some of you may know we host the Memphis Flower Show at the Dixon every 2 years. We've been doing that since 1978. And it's a real collaboration between Kevin and me and Dale Skaggs, our director of horticulture, and the leaders of the Memphis Garden Club. So for 2020, one thing about the Memphis Flower Show that's unique, makes it unique from other flower shows around the country, is everybody comes to Memphis and falls in love with Memphis and our hospitality and our just all the things that there are to do here. The co-chairs of the 2020 Flower Show, which was Adele Welford, Nancy Miller, and Tay Chafin, if y'all are on here, hello. They had the wonderful idea to really showcase our city for 2020. And they really wanted to have local artists spotlighted for the Memphis Flower Show. So if you look at this picture, you can tell the Memphis Flower Show, if you've never been, there's horticulture in there, there's conservation, there's education, but kind of one of the stars of the show is the floral design division, where floral designers come from all over the country to interpret works of art through flower arrangements. So their hope was for 2020 to be a year to spotlight Memphis artists. And they knew kind of their vision for the show was for the art to make a statement, for it to be big and bold and colorful and textural. They wanted to really showcase Memphis and Memphis art with a bang. And we were off to a great start planning that show. We had everything ready. It was in our newsletter. We had all the, materials made. And around March 15th, we started getting nervous about this thing called COVID. And smartly, this is really a statement of the leadership of the Memphis Garden Club, which was Jenny Williams was their president. She decided to cancel the Memphis Flower Show pretty early. I even think Kevin and some of us on staff thought, "Ooh, are we making kind of a rash decision with this?" And ultimately, obviously, COVID turned into something that, maybe some of us, especially me, thought was just going to be a week-long, hiatus. It turned into, here we are still having a Zoom lecture. So they made the right decision to cancel the show, but of course we were devastated and really, kind of really disappointed for the artists that were going to be in that show. That they, we kept hoping, well, maybe we'll be able to open at the end of April. Maybe we'll be able to open at the end of May. And then it just never happened. Now, if you've read anything about exhibitions in museums around the country this year, a lot of us have had a few exhibitions kind of shuffle around because of COVID. Well, it just so happened that we had, because of some shows that got moved, that got postponed because of COVID, we had a little spot in our calendar in 2020, in the spring of 2021. So I'm really proud and so happy that we were able to take Memphis 2020 and plop it into Memphis 2021 in this spot that opens today. So for the Memphis Flower Show, there was going to be a section on Memphis artists of the past. So artists that called Memphis home that are no longer alive. And we decided to give the space that was going to be devoted to those artists in the 2020 Flower Show and give that to working, living, contemporary artists. So we were able to expand on Memphis 2020 in our 2021 version. And I just want to say thank you. I don't know if she's on here, to Mallory Sharp, who was our curatorial assistant at the Dixon for about a year and a half, I think. Mallory helped me find some more artists to add to the 2021 version, and she did a really good job with that. And we'll be talking about some of those artists in just a minute. So this is our shot of the Plow Gallery in Memphis 2021. I told you a lot of the work is big and bold and colorful. And although this version of the show, 2021, features works by 20 artists working in all different kinds of media, I think it really came together as a cohesive exhibition. And I'm really happy, I'm really pleased with the way the galleries look. And as I started to be able to take a step back from the show, in some ways an exhibition of 20 artists is like an amoeba. It's like going all over the place. But once the work started arriving at the Dixon, I was able to really look at it all together as we started doing our installation. And these kind of larger themes started to emerge as we started looking at all of the art together. So I'll just go over 3 of those with you right now. Number 1 is Think Pink. Pink is a very hot color right now, I guess. There is pink in every single artist's work in this exhibition. And I don't know if that's the millennial generation's love of the color pink. You know, there's such a thing as millennial pink that people talk about, or if it's this kind of rosy outlook. I don't know, but you'll see it as we go through the slides of the show. Another one that comes through in this exhibition is texture. There's a lot of these works are really textural, and that might come through their actual use of textiles. So here's Paula Kovarik's work right here, but it's also the like texture of the canvases. The way the artists apply paint to the canvas is really energetic a lot of times. Other times, like this is Roger Cleave's work. Other times it's like, here's Alex Paulus's work over here. It's like they've, there's a lot of impasto or a thickly applied paint to the canvas. So you start seeing that as you, in a lot of artists' work as you go through the show. Number 3, and this is everywhere, is nostalgia. Nostalgia is a very powerful tool for, you know, for commercials, for advertisements, for whatever, but it really plays a part in the art that a lot of artists are making right now. So we'll find a lot of that as we go through the exhibition. I'm really proud of the artists we have represented in this show. I feel like it's a good mix of all different kinds of artists, their background, their age, their medium of choice, you know, what they do as a day job, what, you know, all different kinds of factors play into this really exciting sampling of Memphis art. So there are 20 artists in the show, as I said. I'm going to move kind of quickly as I go through them, but I'm excited to talk about each of them. And just in case you're wondering, I have organized them alphabetical by first name. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Alex Paulus. Alex is a good guy. Hi, Alex, if you're out there. He is really funny. I've really enjoyed getting to know him through this exhibition. His work is really charming and engaging, and it's that sense of humor that's in them that really draws you into his work. But then when you spend time with him, this is one of those works where the paint is applied really thickly, almost like finger paint up here. This one, his paintings often have kind of funny titles to them. This one is Rich People Have the Best Views. And his paintings are big. And if I feel like when you stand in front of them, when they're on the walls of the Dixon here, you spend a little time with them, it's like you're with Alex and he's kind of telling you this funny story behind, you know, over your shoulder. They're really engaging, and I really like the way he, like I said, the way he applies paint to his canvas. And they have this kind of dark sense of humor to them. And they're always in this setting that's kind of like this like bucket list type paradise setting where there's these beautiful mountains and palm trees. But I told you nostalgia is going to play a part in this. So here's Plinko. Did anybody else, any Price is Right fans out there? Or if you're like me, I grew up in the summers spending all the summers with my grandparents watching Price is Right at 10 o'clock every morning. And here's All Hail Plinko. I think this one's really funny. So they have this kind of idyllic setting and this kind of destination type setting, but there's also always something kind of dark going on. So here's all these people that are, you know, kind of bowing before the Plinko. And here's someone who's come, you know, taking a chance and going down Plinko, and he's lost his head on the pegs of the Plinko board. So you can feel his humor, and it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of like you're in on the joke a little bit when you look at these. This one is called His is Better Than His. So here's SOS and SOS. But they're really beautifully painted. The way he paints mountains, he's really great at it. They're really these kind of bold, almost like seductive, luscious colors that he uses in his paintings. So I invite y'all to come spend time with them and get to know Alex if you can. I don't know if I'm sure most of these artists have social media accounts. Hope that you will write his name down and all of these artists and get to know their work a little bit better. Okay, Carol. Hi, Carol. Carrol McTyre was somebody I learned about in the process of planning for this exhibition, and I am so excited to be sharing her work with all of you. Carrol, like several artists in this exhibition, is an art educator in addition to being a practicing artist herself. She teaches at Lakeland High School or Arlington High School, I can't remember, Carol. And I had just a wonderful studio visit with her a couple years back, and have loved, you know, seeing her, the variety of work that she makes. She makes a lot of sculpture that plays on the familiar. It takes things that are really familiar to all of us and turns them on their head a little bit, twists them. So I'll start with this one, which is the sum of small things. These are little pieces of small pieces of paper. Okay, so they're not the actual size of notebook paper that, you know, like 8.5 by 11 notebook paper, but they're about this big. And she has taken all of these individual sheets of paper and turned them into, made the lines on them so that they look like notebook paper, and has kind of smudged them all together. And they come out from the wall like this. And I show this detail shot just to show you how much work went into the creation of this work of art. It's almost obsessive a little bit in the way that she made it, but it's really, you know, really cool. And I think, again, nostalgia it plays a part in her work for sure. So we all think about being students. We're all, you know, remember those days of blank pieces of paper, almost like the beginning of the school year where you have this fresh notebook and all of these ideas kind of waiting to be written down. And one of the first works I saw by her that I kind of fell in love with is this one. It's called Remains. And I really love it. Any of you grew up with, you know, these kind of lawn chairs that your parents would bring to your ball game? Really reminds me of those. But what Carrol has done is taken the frame of those, and she's painted them, and then she's made the, you know, the fabric or the bands that you generally form the place where your back and your seat go in these chairs. She's made them out of paper and graphite and drawn on them with graphite. So the detail here is really interesting to see, and then stack them up on the wall, against the wall, just like they might be in your garage. I think they've also been displayed like hanging on hooks on the wall, like they might be in your garage as well. And so again, there's something really familiar to these works of art. So in that way, they kind of draw you in. They're accessible, okay, right? They're all things, these are objects that we are all familiar with, that we might just take for granted or toss around. But she's taken them and kind of recreated them through her lens as an artist. The last one I think is, I don't have this title written down, but I think it's, I could use a little help here. So she's taken a crutch and then joined it together with other pieces of wood and hardware. And then here's a detail shot of it where it's almost got a little, coming up a little short right here. So I'll go back a couple of slides just so you see for scale how big the work of art is. And it's really kind of funny. It's got this like almost stick figure like simplicity to it. And again, I think it's one of these things that makes you kind of chuckle a little bit, or makes your, you know, your mouth kind of smile a little bit when you look at it. But then you spend some time looking at it and see the, you know, the skill that went into putting this together, the thought that went into putting this together. And I think it, you know, kind of warrants that time that's spent in front of all three of these. So here's Danny Broadway. Danny is such a great guy. Danny has lived in Memphis for a long time now, and is such a great artist. He's another educator at St. George's, art teacher at St. George's School, and really kind of beloved in their school community. If you ever meet him, he's just like a hug. Danny is such a nice guy. And his work over the years He's known for these kind of moody and dreamlike paintings that are set, seemingly set in the past. Almost like they kind of have like a fairy tale quality to them sometimes without being, you know, sweetsy or anything like that. They're just, you know, set in a time and place where some things are familiar to us and some things aren't. And so nostalgia, you know, plays a role in his work for sure. But I was really blown away by this new body of work that Danny has made in recent months, just over the past year, really. I think that these bold colors, that the kind of the kaleidoscopic colors that are in the background of the works that he has on view in Memphis 2021 are a bit of a departure for him. And while some of his work really, you know, still feels like Danny, so this is one that's in the show, and this is his photograph of it in his studio. I think that's always kind of fun to see. Other parts, so there's parts of the painting, like the figures in this painting feel kind of a little more classic Danny Broadway style. But other ones, like this one, are bold and modern. And I think, I don't know, you know, I felt really encouraged by what Danny was able to produce in 2020. 2020 and 2021 were hard years for a lot of us, but maybe especially for Danny. And I think the work that came out of it is so strong. Maybe this is the thing that art can do for people, that art can, you know, the role, the purpose that it can serve for artists. It's their creative outlet. It's really, this one is, I think, my favorite of his works that are in the show. It's really got these kind of timeless elements to them. In some ways, this reminds me of Jacob Lawrence, some of the works in Jacob Lawrence's Migration series. But it also feels, if you look really close, the figures feel kind of contemporary. And the paint that he uses, here's some more pink, is in some of the areas in here, the paint is metallic. So it really kind of reflects, it really reflects light. So you have this contrast between light being reflected and then really absorbed by the black paint that's used. So it's this kind of push-pull for your attention, I think, in this work of art that makes it so strong. And the emotion that's in here. So the hands are raised in the air in this kind of, in this gesture of praise, or, you know, gesture of asking for help, I think, in some ways. And the hands really contrast from this, like I said, kaleidoscopic background behind it. And I just love it. I think it's a really strong work of art. Okay, so here's Debbie Pacheco. Hey, Debbie. I was introduced to Debbie and her work by Carrol McTyre. And in some ways, I'm going to tell you how I found out about these artists, just to encourage anybody out there that is an artist to come find me. And or if you know someone that you think I should look at, let me know. I love Debbie's work. Debbie's paintings, I think probably pre-COVID, Debbie was a good traveler and traveled all over the country and perhaps in all over the world into these urban centers and would take these pictures of particularly women, but just figures in these urban settings going about their everyday life. So they're these anonymous, candid, I guess you would call them like street photographs today. They are these, for the most part, voyeuristic type images. So I'm saying voyeuristic, they're not creepy voyeuristic, they're just looking. These images of looking at women going about their lives in urban environments. And they're really, really observant. So she takes pictures and turns them into paintings back in her studio. And we're always in this, seems to me, in this close proximity to the subject of the work, but there is a distance between us. So she either blurs their face, blurs their features. So they're not portraits. They are studies of their figure paintings. They're anonymous women. So their faces are blurred. We don't know who they are. They're more like types of people rather than individual people themselves. And they're really pretty contemporary. I think she really touches on the idea of the loneliness of being in a crowd, of being in an urban environment, the kind of isolation that sometimes you can feel even though you're in the middle of a lot of activity. Of course, today, these images, I think, feel a little bit nostalgic to us because our life is not like this anymore, where, especially if you live in a crowded city. Maybe it's getting back to being that way, but we hit the pause button on traveling to crowded cities, I think, for a little while. I love this one. It's called Passing. To me, this feels like it should be the cover of a novel. You know, I can see the words written over it. A novel about a modern woman. I think this painting is really great. So in addition to her features being blurred, the background being blurred, this young woman is wearing sunglasses. So there's this further barrier between us having a connection with her and maybe her having a connection with anybody else. Here's two more works by Debbie that I really love. So this one's called Foggy here. I think this is like a 2021 Mona Lisa, where we have this contemporary woman with this, you know, illusionistic landscape behind her. And she's got her, you know, to-go coffee cup. And her face has been obscured a little bit, just to kind of take away the you know, specific nature of who this woman is, saying that this is kind of like every woman, I think. And then here's up close, but not personal. So again, I was telling you that we are in close proximity. We're very close to these people, almost like we're right behind them, crossing at the crosswalk and breathe, yeah, almost like breathing on them. But there's a distance between us and these women as they go about their lives. And there's, you know, all of them, I think, kind of ooze this iciness. And I don't know, in some ways it's them being kind of aloof a little bit, but also I think there's a vulnerability to the women in Debbie's paintings, a vulnerability and kind of a sense of loneliness, but also a sense of beauty to them too. I think she's just amazing painter with textures. You can see in here, the different texture between the hair of the woman and her kind of silky jacket that she wears. So Debbie's one of these artists who's had, I think, pretty good luck selling her work around the country through the miracle of the internet. And I encourage all of you to look her up and get to know her and her work a little bit better too. Okay, so Frances, I first met Frances when I used to do, and I really miss doing this, studio visits and studio critiques at Memphis College of Art for their undergrad and also graduate students. And maybe this was around 2009 or something like that. And Frances was a graduate student. She was a photographer then. And even then, she left her mark on me. She is a very bold woman. She's very confident and really nice and engaging, wants to get to know you, and very talkative, kind of charming. But it's been fun to watch her career evolve. So at a certain point, she switched over to painting, kind of made this leap to start exploring painting. And I think it's been really successful for her. She's known for paintings that kind of look like this. She also has been really successful in getting these mural projects around Memphis and all over the place. Oxford, I think, Nashville, in different cities. So you can look at her and see her work is very bold. It matches her personality. They're awesome, but it's her paintings that really are interesting to me. So we have 3 of her paintings in the show. They're big, and as you can see by looking at this, they're really bold. She looks at, and I'll go backwards a couple of slides, looks at the female nude in a lot of her work. Also makes this kind of connection between feminine beauty or society's expectations of feminine beauty and the beauty of flowers. So flowers appear a lot in her work. Her works have, and you can look at these, they're inspired by, they are energetic. They are kind of chaotically energetic. They have the feeling that they were made really quickly, almost like graffiti. I think there's definitely an influence of urban graffiti in her work. So like I said, they look like they're just kind of dashed together. But I think that they're more carefully thought out than we might think, more carefully planned. So she mixes media in here. She'll use charcoal, she'll use acrylic paint, spray paint, all different kinds of ways to make a mark in her work, and even tape. She'll apply either like black and white caution tape, or here we have black and white checkered tape. And a lot of images, her images with female nudes really question society's expectations for feminine beauty and what it means to be a woman, I think. So Francis's works are really bold. They're kind of, no, they're not kind of loud. They are loud. But they're also really engaging, I think. They're not so loud that they turn you away. But from loud to quiet, we'll talk about Jennifer Sargent's work. And though Jennifer's work is a little bit more quiet, there's nothing bland or stale about it. There is a lot going on in her work. I have loved having Jennifer's work here in the building. And once we've got them installed, was able to really see them in a great light and look at how intricate they are. Jennifer, I'm sort of mesmerized by her work, really, by this one. This is Shadow Warrior. Jennifer is primarily a textile artist, okay, but that's not all that she does. She, works in different media. So this is graphite on paper, but there's also, if you see the zigzag lines, this is embroidery floss that she's embroidered, joining two pieces of paper together. And we see these almost like, here are the hands that are making shadow puppets on the wall. And so you can see that she, with the thread that runs through here, the thread that, that she's drawn onto the paper, and also the thread that physically runs through the work of art, that her work as a textile artist really informs all of the work that she makes. And there's a real, there's a concept of weaving that goes through her work, but also this interest in light and shadow that I think is really beautiful. So here's an example of one of her textiles. It feels kind of like a flag form that hangs off the wall, and it is beautiful. The construction is flawless in this work, and it's fairly big. I mean, I don't know how when you see it on this slide on your computer screen, I don't know how big it kind of translates, but it's got a nice big size to it. And on our wall at the Dixon, it's dimensional. So it comes out from the wall a little bit. And therefore, you get this nice sense of shadow, these shadows that are cast onto the wall when you stand in front of it, that is really awesome. And the tapestry itself is really beautiful. It's called Mountain and Garden. And this area up here, I mean, it's got this nice contrast between kind of the free-flowing organic forms of the natural elements up here, and these more graphic lines that she's woven into the tapestry on this in this section of it. So we've got this kind of feminine flowing lines with the kind of stricter and more masculine section of the tapestry here. So it's kind of a nice study in contrast. And I think it's, like I said, it's just really beautiful. So this is her work, Different Sorts of Love, and it's from this fairy tale series that she had undertaken. This is actually two pieces of, these are drawings that are made on wax paper. So they're really large, they're pretty large, narrow, kind of two separate individual works of art that are just like a diptych that are displayed together. So again, I wish I had a detail of this to show you. She has embroidered actually onto the pieces of paper up here at the top and here in the middle. And they have this kind of trellis effect to it. So there are 2 layers to each piece. One is a kind of the background layer, and over it is this trellis type piece of paper. And so if you look inside of it, you will see different figures from fairy tales. So here's Little Red Riding Hood. Cinderella is right here with her shoe, and Prince Charming is right down here. But there's also these kind of more lurking shadow figures in the overlay, okay, in the kind of more trellis type covering that goes over these figures. So there's wolf, there's mice that are in here, all different sorts of creatures. So this is one of those works of art that really invites you to spend time in front of it and discover different things. I think you'll be delighted when you do, almost like a seek and find in some ways. And then once you're looking that closely at it, you see the incredible skill of Jennifer Sargent. So this is watercolor in the background and graphite, and on this part that goes over it. But it's watercolor in the background, and they're so meticulous and precise. Meticulous makes it sound obsessive. Without being obsessive, it's really beautiful. And then having this embroidery that goes across it is really such a nice touch too, and adds even more texture to this work of art. So here's Johana Moscoso. Hi, Johana. I have been so excited to get to know her work. Johana is one of these artists that I encourage you to find. She's got a great website, and I encourage you to spend some time looking around there. She is a Colombian artist that lives here in Memphis, a multifaceted artist doing all sorts, creating art in all sorts of ways. Okay, so she's got these textiles, and this is the detail of one that we're looking at here. But she also does sculpture, ceramic sculpture, performance art, video. Her work is bold. It's bright, it's big in a lot of instances. And it's got this, again, you can see here, this kind of shocking pink color that runs through it. And there's, something about this work that is, maybe nostalgic on a couple of levels. In one way, everybody that's seen it is like, oh, this reminds me of the string art that my grandmother had on her wall. And everybody has this kind of, oh, this reminds me of this reaction to it. But I think on a personal level for the artist, this is kind of her nostalgia for a certain person. So these works of art that are in by Johana in this show, and I'm showing you all of them here, are from a project, a larger project that's called the Ingrid Lopez Project. They are very beautifully and carefully and really lovingly made. So they're only one part of this, larger project that's in memory of someone, a relative of hers named Ingrid Lopez, who was kind of a beloved member of her family and of her community. And it's one of these people that kind of touched the lives of a lot of people that she met. And I think this is a beautiful tribute. Any of us that have lost somebody very close to us, many of us know that that person's clothes can be some of the hardest things to let go of after a person dies. You walk into somebody's closet that has died, you can smell them, you can feel their presence through their clothes. And then you just have all these memories of them in certain garments, like, oh, she looked so beautiful in this dress. So that's what Johana has done with these works of art. And I'll go back to my detail. There are fragments taken from a dress that belonged to Ingrid. So many of these works have the title, Dos Vestidos de Ingrid, or two dresses or garments of Ingrid, where she's taken them and then kind of pieced them together and connected them with the different strings. So they feel really personal. And on her website, there's this beautiful video that she made about this project. But I think the strings in this case, kind of transcending the string art references that we all might see when we see them, she's turned these into these almost like maps of how this one person connected a bunch of people together. At least that's what I take from it. In some ways, they remind me of like flight maps a little bit to show how planes get from one place to another, and show how this one person was connected to all these different people and touched so many lives. So I think it's really beautiful that she took this garment, or taken several various garments, and turned them into a work of art that will live on in the memory of this really special person. So the Ingrid, this is only one part of the Ingrid project. There's, like I said, there's ceramic sculpture that goes along with this, and some performance art that is connected to the project as well. So I'm really excited to have these in our galleries, really proud to. This is a self-portrait of Jonah Westbrook, and this is on view in the exhibition. Jonah is an artist, a painter that I've been happy to get to know, a great representational painter. I've been able to get to, just met him and get to know him through the exhibition. His work looks to, at least the work that we have in the exhibition, looks to our interior worlds a lot. And I think that's really interesting. Especially in this last year, because we spent so much time in our homes, that we've been able to think about them as the backdrop of our whole life. And what does that mean for us? A lot of his paintings have this sense of a little bit of tension or disquiet, or almost surrealism to them. So I just showed his self-portrait. This one on over here is called Triumph, and here is Routine. I like Routine a lot. I think this is one of those kind of surreal things where the natural motifs that we surround ourselves in our life. So here's this old wingback chair. I mean, a lot of us have a chair like this in our house, or we grew up with one, with this kind of floral motif on it. And then here's the plants that are in his home kind of growing around it. There are house plants that we, keep in our home, that have become kind of a hobby for a lot of us over the past year. They start coming together, and where it's hard to distinguish one from the other. It's hard to distinguish the constructed natural elements that are on the fabric on the chair and the houseplants themselves. So like I said, there's some definite surrealism to it, where it's we're a little unsettled. We don't know what's what when we're looking at this. He pays a lot of attention to the tones and the textures that surround us in our own homes. And then there's a little bit more, a little bit of surrealism here going on with this one called An End. So it is, there's a few of these paintings that I've noticed that are these kind of feel a little bit post-apocalyptic, where it's like not really sure what's going on, almost futuristic a little bit, futuristic surrealism to them. But it's really interesting to take a look at it. Of course, it's taking objects like a table and chairs that we have in our own home, and they're starting to come apart and float into the air. So definitely a little weird, a little surreal, but beautifully painted. And the way he handles light, I think, is really good, because it almost makes it feel like these objects are floating in front of us. It really puts you into the scene and makes you feel a little uneasy, I think, when you're standing in front of it. So I consider that a successful work of art. So Juan Rojo's art is really visually seductive for any of us with an art history background, because they take so much of their poses and that dramatic sense of light and shadow from like Spanish Baroque art, and art historical, kind of Baroque era art historical precedents. But there's so much more going on to them, of course. Looking at this painting called Treat with Care, which I love, there's a lot of layers going on in them. The figures themselves are actually very contemporary. Of course, they're not, a lot of them are disguised several times, or they're wearing some kind of costume or headdress like this little girl is. But they're not in, like period costume or anything like that. So contemporary colors and big sense of drama in his work. This one has this kind of sense of sadness, like a somber feeling to it, like this little girl is holding a lifeless bird in this glove, in her gloved hand that she has. So her face is sad, but that kind of somber sense to this painting is really contrasted with the bright colors, this, again, kaleidoscopic background here. And the bright colors of this crown that she's wearing, but it's hanging heavy over her eyes. So there's this push and pull between kind of sadness and joy and, color and happy color and sorrowful tones, this black camisole that she's wearing or black dress that she's wearing. There's a definite push-pull going on in the scene. And I think I think he hits on the right balance in between to make this a really, really successful work of art. So the other two works that we have by him, I love. So this one is Judith and Holofernes. So any of you who've been coming to the Dixon over the years know that we have our own version of Judith, but it doesn't look like this. It's just Judith with the head of Holofernes, and it's a painting from the 1800s. So this is his 2021 update of this, age-old, centuries-old story that's been interpreted by artists over the years for a long time. So here's this girl with a play sword about to take off the head of Holofernes. But the girl has this crown on where she's got cat ears, a Spider-Man, kind of plush Spider-Man. And I can't remember the name of these stuffed animals that were really, my daughter has one that were really popular a couple of years ago. And so this whole thing is got this laser, like these laser beams that are going through the scene. So it's, again, this push and pull between historic and futuristic and, tradition and contemporary that I think is going on here. But look at how well he can paint. His handling of light and texture, the way he's able to communicate skin and flesh, I think is really, really beautiful. And then again, these works of art that you need to spend some time in front of because there's a lot going on in the background. So he does a lot with stencils, I think, but some of this is actually applied additional, paper or canvas that's applied to the main canvas. And so the works themselves have a great dimensionality to them that I think is really makes them more interesting and gives you a lot to look at when you spend time with this. So it's not just the main scene, the figures and the way they're posed in the painting, but also everything else that goes around them. It's a really layered experience to spend time with his work. Oh, I should mention, he did a Munch and Learn at the beginning of COVID that went inside his studio, and it's really great. I think his daughter narrates it. I think you can go on our YouTube page and check that out. It was really fun. So Justin Bowles is an artist that we've had been engaged with at the Dixon on and off for a while. Justin was our Mallory and Würzburger artist, but I actually met her, I think, back when she was at Memphis College of Art. And her senior thesis was one of these planteliers, as she calls them, these large, almost like giant mobiles, I think, that hang from the ceiling. And there are these sculptural collages of paper and different materials that she puts together, she kind of weaves together to make these chandelier type structures that hang from the ceiling. So Justin has an installation in our Crump Gallery. The whole Crump Gallery is hers for this cool installation that's called Bedizen Park. Bedizen meaning adorn or elaborate. And it's her meditation garden. that she built. She spent, you can go in there and see how much time, you can only imagine how much time went into the creation of this room. Originally for the 2020 flower show, it was supposed to be kind of like a futuristic garden. But, you know, over the course of the last year, I think gardening became a hobby for Justin. And so the one that she built is this more peaceful meditation garden, I think. So the structure in the middle here, and I know my pictures don't do it justice, you really have to come and see this, is like a ziggurat or a temple that's in the middle of this garden, and on the sides are waterfalls. And it's all paper and different, you know, very relatable materials. Some of this might be like you're looking at here, the flowers that she makes are actually made from mylar and different materials. This little kind of like mushroom type flower is made from cupcake liners. And of course, nostalgia plays a big part in Justin's work here. These little strawberries that, you know, like my grandmother had some of these that she used as pin cushions. So I really kind of relate to Justin's work there. There is a soundscape that goes along with this that is made by her friends that are in a band called Gray Balloon, I think, and it's called Love Theme from Bedizen Park 84. And the music itself really, I hope you kind of stay in this room to let the music kind of wash over you, because it really runs the gamut, I think, in a lot of ways. And this is Justin's intention, of the emotions a lot of us felt over the last year. So sometimes it's kind of harsh and a little spooky, scary. And then it'll go to something that's a little more light and pleasant and happy. And then it ends with a peaceful calm, I think. And it's a great, you know, it's a great experience. Justin, congratulations on a great installation. But it's not our only work by Justin. We also have this triptych by her. It's called Heirloom Friendship. This is kind of an evolution of her quilts, her paper quilts that she's made called Force Fields over the years. This one is really large. I show it installed here so you can get a sense of the scale. So this is the Crump Gallery and the doorway to the Stout Gallery. This feels to me almost like an altarpiece, a triptych. That would be on the altar of a church. It's that big and impressive, and kind of has this sense of joy, but also a little bit of the sacred to it as well. So from the chaos of Justin's work, or the busyness of Justin's work, we'll look at Katherine George's work now. I was introduced to Katherine by Amanda Getz, who is a friend of mine, a friend of the Dixons, and an art dealer here in Memphis. And I just loved her work, these beautiful modern botanical studies that I saw, came to know through Amanda. And she's really looks at plant forms in a lot of her work, plant life that she observes on her walks and on her visits to the Dixon. I know Katherine comes to visit us here with her daughter. So her paintings take these plant forms. So there it is. So different various plant forms that she takes, that she observes and really studies and records their contours. And she places them in these arches, or in some cases, these colonnades behind a colonnade, or in this almost Colosseum-like structure that she builds for them. So she takes something wild and contains it, almost to protect it, I think, in some ways. So you get this tension, or this push and pull again, between the natural world and the man-made world, and the kind of free-flowing lines of organic forms and the angularity of man-made forms or man-made structures. So they have this kind of element of the surreal to them. We're not used to seeing a tree growing in a structure like this. And then everything else is so sparse in her paintings and so meticulously and neatly painted that it kind of heightens this surreal aspect to her works. So they're really kind of carefully planned and carefully studied. And got these kind of bright colors. So again, there's this tension between the bright colors, and really the colors are much more pink in person than they're looking, at least on my screen. So that between the bright colors and this kind of quiet serenity to the work. So they're very quiet. They're got this, you know, bright, bold, in some cases, bold colors. But the works of art themselves are pretty quiet and almost reverent and serene. And then there's this, you know, push and pull between delicacy, the delicacy of the images and the strength of the plants that grow in our natural world. This one's called Garden Windows, and I love it because this is an interior, or feels to me like we're in a room with two windows, and the wallpaper on the room has this natural motif to it, almost like Jonah Westbrook's work that we were looking at a minute ago. And we're looking out and seeing these wild and free plants growing outside the windows. So the structure of the world that we create for ourselves inside our own homes, and then the freedom of the natural world outside. Here's Mae Aur's work. Mae's work has been a bit of a revelation to me. I've been just shocked and surprised and delighted by it. These are wooden relief sculptures that are treated in some ways like collage, in some ways like paintings too. I'll show you, this is a detail of one of them, and here's the work of art itself. Mae's work really takes symbols, motifs, ideas that are have, you know, far-reaching art historical precedents. So these evil eyes that go back in art for centuries, millennia even, and re-examines them and refreshes them through these bright colors and really impeccable, meticulously crafted works of art. So these are, they hang on the wall. They're wood relief sculptures where the pieces of wood are applied on top of each other. So you see what I mean? They're almost like collage. And I think this one kind of shows you a little bit like it. This one is called Give Her Time, Give Her Space. And we see the eyes that are here that are going up these figures are almost like phases of the moon, right? As they change, as they evolve. And I like this idea of pouring in. The fountain is going to appear in just a second again. But this idea of pouring into others over time. And the surface of her work is what's really so amazing and really needs to be experienced. It's so pristine. It's almost like fondant. I show a detail in this one that's called Aging Remedy. Actually, I say it looks like fondant or like candy coating. Someone asked if this was leather. That's how smooth the texture is that she's able to achieve. I'm sure by sanding wood down until she thinks her arm's going to fall off. This sculpture is again called Aging Remedy. There's in Mae's work that I've seen, it's very clever. There's a sense of humor to them, almost like a winking sense of humor. And the pristine surface of this work, I think, again, furthers her point of this being almost like a fountain of youth, a search for a fountain of youth, and our contemporary culture's obsession or eternal quest for perfection and youthful perfection. So again, like I said, you can see the smooth texture to this. Now, this is a shot that I took during our installation. The actual finished look is a little bit cleaner than this, but it's got a plug into it because there's also a sound element to this where you can hear a fountain running, the sound of a fountain running as you stand in front of this. So it's got this kind of clever, another clever element to this work of art. And I think her work seems to look at these kind of age-old traditions, these age-old themes, centuries-old themes with this new lens, young, youthful, clever, questioning lens that she's looking at, you know, she's looking at these subjects through. But I I think they've been kind of a standout among the show, and an artist that we've all been happy to learn about. So Mae, thank you for participating in this show. Excited to get to know your work even more. Mary Jo, hey Mary Jo Karimnia. Mary Jo is an arts mover and shaker in Memphis. One thing I love about Mary Jo is that she is a unifier. She's always looking for ways to collaborate and work together with different artists. She herself works in a variety of media, and works in a variety of media and uses color, a variety of color and pattern in her work. Pattern plays a big role in texture. I like to show these two works are installed in the exhibition alongside the one I just showed from her Overripe series. So she's known for using beads in her work. These are seed beads that she applies to vintage postcards. So that element of nostalgia comes in there. This one is an azalea bush. I'm obsessed with it. It's really beautiful. And again, you have to stand in front of it. It's so luscious and lush. And, but also at the same time, delicate with these beads. And we all know here in Memphis, azaleas are beautiful, but they don't last very long. So this beauty that she seeks to achieve and very carefully applying these beads to these panels, the beauty is fleeting. And I think that with these beads, there's a certain delicacy to them, like they might fall off if you touch it. And same thing with the flower petals, they might wilt if you touch them. So there's this idea of abundance, intense abundance that comes through in these works. And there's a video again that she did for us last year during the pandemic about her work. And this really just sums up Mary Jo and her attitude toward creating art is she sees these works, these vintage postcards, as collaborations with artists that she doesn't know, the artists that took the photograph for the postcard. She sees herself as collaborating with them. And I love that about her. And then this one, the origami series, the Wheel of Fortune, where she takes photographs of things, prints them on paper, makes makes origami figures with them, layers them over another work, and then photographs them again. So again, this idea of layering in her work, I think is really great. And Mary Jo, I think you told me that the ironwork in this is from the gate, some of the gates at Graceland, which I think is really awesome too. And the colors in this is really, really saturated and really beautiful and luscious, just like in her Overripe series. There's Mary Kay Van Giesen. Oh God, I gotta keep going. Mary Kay Van Giesen has been such a wonderful person for me to get to know. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have spent time with her over the past few years. Because I love her work. Mary Kay was an art teacher for many years, and so has mentored generations of students over the years. She is an interesting and an interested artist, interested in a bunch of different things, her work. She does sculpture, she has printmaking, she's skilled at book art, she writes herself, and creates these sculptures with the textile component to them. So this is a photograph of our installation of her tools series, where she takes rusted old gardening tools and breathes new life in them by crocheting yarn onto different aspects of them. There's things that are missing from these sculptures or from these tools that she's filled in with yarn, with crochet. So I was immediately sold on these given our garden setting here at the Dixon. So in crocheting different aspects of them, and here's a close-up so you can see some of them, I think she brings up these different, contrast, these different contrasting elements. So there's this push and pull between the interior of crocheting, and needlework is thought to be an interior hobby, or pastime, and gardening being an exterior. So the interior and the exterior worlds. The texture. So there's this contrast between the hardness of the metal of each tool and then the softness of this recently crocheted yarn that you can see and experience when you stand in front of the work, and also really on a deeper level between the masculine and the feminine. So the masculine connotations of labor, of outside labor, and then the feminine association with knitting and needlework that I think she pulls together into one work of art, or one series of works of art with the Tools series. She also is a very skilled printmaker. So this is a diptych, really, of two different kinds of printmaking, letters and memory. And so here is, we have an example of dry point printmaking and collograph printmaking. So one with color, one without, one where the design is drawn into the plate or onto the matrix, and one where it's more like a relief type printmaking. And the result is really beautiful, and they look so nice together. And you can learn a little bit about printmaking, I think, when you're standing in front of these and see the different textures that are achieved in the different prints. So Meredith Ollinger is our next artist we'll talk about. She's got very colorful, bright, bold works of art. Meredith's work has been of interest to me for years, and her work reads very clearly as her own. Okay, so you can really identify Meredith's work. It's got real interest in strong patterns and very layered textures. And she's really bold, I think, in the way that she mixes media and that she mixes art together, various forms of art making together. These two works are from her Intertwine series. So these are more kind of traditional works of art, where she's taken acrylic and ink, but they have this kind of, they read a lot like prints, and these, U-shaped forms, I think, really kind of connect for me in some ways to Mary Kay's work. But they're bold and really kind of lusciously colorful, I think, in some ways. And they seem to me to be in some ways kind of a practice, or, her kind of working things out for her larger work, which is these freestanding walls, wallpapered walls that she creates that are bold and chaotic. They've got a lot of energy, a lot of layered, where she's layered. She actually makes wallpaper itself, and then puts that on the wall and applies other painted papers on top of it, and then rips them and kind of collages them together in really interesting ways. These remind me of the images that we come across here at the Dixon with our permanent collection of these crowded Parisian broadfronts with all these posters advertising different dance halls or music halls. And here's our fancy man, our Nicolas Escalier, that's in our collection. But whereas these, all of these posters are sending someone away, sending someone to a different location, Meredith's collage, or her wallpapered walls, really invite you in and invite you to spend time looking at the variety of patterns that she comes up with, and spend time with her process as an artist. Nick Hewlett is a very talented digital artist, so I'm excited to have digital illustration in the show. He has shown with Jonah Westbrook and our own Kristen Rambo here over the years. Nostalgia is heavy in his work. When I met him, I had to ask, did you go to Catholic school? And yes, he did. His work re-examines his childhood experiences in the Catholic school system and just growing up. And look at this and see the kind of uniform approach to education that he experienced and that many people experience. And he takes a look at that system, those traditions, and the conventions for behavior and just for learning in general that we simply accept in our youth. And he kind of takes another look at those. So here in this work, here's the class school picture. I mean, that's probably me right there, or me right here as a kid. I'm just kidding. And then look at the conduct. So here's looking at this, and then EESS, and then very quickly it goes to U. So it's interesting to see how someone, I think what he's saying is someone can be branded almost as unsatisfactory, even at such a young age. And we've got all these doodles that are going around him. These images are from his Galactic Patron Saint series. And so here's a patron saint wearing a mask. And here's a roller coaster in the background, kind of symbolizing the roller coaster ride we've all been on this last year. And Sunday Steel. I love this, looking at different Sunday traditions, I think, that he had growing up, where you go to church, but then you go home and watch wrestling. I had a brother who watched wrestling on Sunday, so I can relate. I feel right at home with this. So there's this, sense of the familiar in this work, and nostalgia for the experiences we had in our youth, but also some kind of feeling of the supernatural in here as well, or futurism in here as well, as these, here's the wrestling ring that's kind of floating up in the air. And we've even got our TV dinner here waiting for us, which I love. So I think there's just for me, there's a connection here between the show of wrestling, the kind of theatrical aspect of it, and the same thing, that same aspect of some of our, worship services, our church experiences. Paula, hey Paula. Paula's a great artist that we have here in Memphis. Paula's 2018 Mallory and Wurzburger show was kind of a revelation for a lot of people. We have never received as much fan mail as we did during Paula's exhibition. It really showed us that there's an appetite for fiber arts in our community, and a people that want to see more of it, want to see artists doing interesting things with textiles. And Paula certainly does that. Her textile works are so good and walk so many lines so brilliantly. They are rooted in quilting, so they're familiar. And here's her work, Guardian, but they challenge us at the same time. So they're quilted works of art, but I hesitate to say she's a quilter because she is an artist that uses fabric and sewing as her medium. They are chaotic, yet at the same time, you can see her control that she's exerted over them as an artist. Almost like there's a method to the madness, I think, of her works of art. And lately, she's been adding dimension to her works, and therefore we get more light and shadow in them, and more movement to her works as well. So this is Guardian. It looks like an angel wing in some ways, and it comes out from the wall. We also have the isolation chamber here, which came out of the pandemic and the isolation, I think, that we all felt. So this is how the artist intended it. We have a photograph of Paula in the same kind of pose. Of course, because of COVID, we won't be able to all be sticking our heads in here. So I took a picture of the inside for you, where she's sewn the words calm down, all around the interior of it, and this beautiful lace that forms the interior of this isolation chamber. So I think some of my coworkers will agree I really need to take this to heart and calm down a little bit. Rick, I've been glad to get to know Rick Nietzsche's work. I've introduced to his work through Elizabeth Eggleston. And his work is mainly what you're looking at, these pen, ink and marker drawings that he makes over and over and over again. They are amazing. Rick lives with his sister and her family in Collierville, and he rides his bike to the Collierville Square, to where the train tracks go through town. And he records the trains that he sees come by. Okay, the train is such a part of our life here in East Memphis, and all over Memphis. And he records trains in his drawings. So he's got this kind of amazing knowledge about freight trains and passenger trains. I think he first became interested in them as a boy in Chicago, living near the trains there. But here in Memphis, he's, carried that on. This is a diptych of his. No, these are two separate works of art, excuse me, of his recordings of trains. So actually what we're looking at, they look like abstract grids of color, or almost like tapestries when you stand back from them. But they are hand-colored individual trains, recordings of trains in the order that they go by on the train tracks in Collierville and the way that he sees them. So you'll see, here's the beginning of the train. And at the end of several of his works of art, you see this little red little red dot here, and that's signaling the light at the end of a train. So some of them, and they are very specific to the different train lines. So Milwaukee Road has orange, this kind of yellowy orange and maroon colors that are used. And then he also records not just the trains that go by, but also the types of train cars. So some of these are double-decker train cars, and then some of them have like a dome on top of them. So bi-level trains or domed cars that we see as well. But you stand back from them and they appear to almost pulsate. They have this kind of abstract tapestry-like quality to them, and they are truly amazing. They're really interesting works of art, and I'm very proud to be showing Rick's work here at the Dixon. We have Roger Cleves here too. Roger, we've known for a while here. Roger's paintings are large, they are surprising, they are loud, they are busy, they are energetic. There's a lot going on in them. They are drawn from his imagination and these creations of a fantastical world. And again, they have this kind of post-apocalyptic quality to them. They are connected to this idea of fantasy, this fantastical world where things kind of all kind of come together. And but there's also a lot of symbols in his work that you will recognize. This one's called Way of the Warrior, and this is the one that's on the title wall. So we see these like storm clouds here, these rainbows. So that's something that we're used to seeing, but the colors on there aren't exactly what we're used to. There's serpentine forms in a lot of his work, like this one, that run through these shadow-like fantastical creatures that seem to be kind of ominous. They are fiercely energetic, and the term horror vacui, or the fear of empty spaces, comes to mind when you look at Roger's work. There's so much going on in them. Again, here's some more of these symbols that are through here. Lightning strikes, and again, the serpents, these kind of like wolf-like creatures that are in here. So they really invite you to spend a lot of time. I think Roger also writes as well. And so I think that plays a role in the creation of his works of art. They are layered. There's, like I said, there's a lot going on in them. So there's shapes and symbols and colors and lines that are all layered on top of each other. And they're really amazing, kind of have a futuristic quality to them. And one thing that I think is really interesting is Roger himself, his work is so loud and so bold, but Roger himself, to me, my experience, he's very reserved. So it's interesting to see how his creativity manifests itself in his paintings. So here we have shark fins sticking out from the water. There's all these kind of signs of warning in his works of art that I find interesting and really, again, kind of surreal when you look at them. Again, they're large, so they kind of have a power over you in some ways. Sharon Havelka is the last artist that we'll look at. I've been so happy to get to know Sharon's work. It's really awesome Sharon is another fiber artist making incredibly interesting sculptures through using textiles as her medium, and making three-dimensional sculptures with material that we normally think of as flat. This one is called Hairy Tofu, and I'll show you an installation shot. I love the way we have this installed because it really they look like almost like specimens on the wall. And there's a real interest, I think, in the natural world in her work. I should mention that Sharon uses recycled fabrics a lot of times from her own family, or sometimes just discarded remnants of fabric. So they're very conscientious. They're also conscientious of light and dark. They kind of walk a line and examine the contrast between softness and strength. So the softness of the material that she uses, but also the strength that is achieved. She'll spray, has like a gloss that is over them and gives them kind of a harder texture. These quilts are amazing. They, I think, very clearly draw on the American quilting tradition, but she makes them completely her own, I think. This one over here is called She'll, so SHE''LL, she will. But also, if you take away the apostrophe, it's shell. And the form comes out from the wall, so you can see that a little bit here in this photograph. And it really looks like a tortoise shell or turtle shell, which many of us know is one of this really super hard form of protection. One of the most efficient and most effective forms of protection in the natural world. And it's got these shell-like, the patterns that appear on tortoise shells. But also, you know, the idea of she'll, she will, alludes to or hints at this kind of powerful future for women. She will achieve this. And quilting, of course, has been associated with women for so long. But I think she looks to a more powerful future for the women that create, you know, that have been able to create wonderful works of art like quilts over the years. So she draws on that tradition even as she kind of turns it on its head and upends it. And I also think both of these works of art feel like shields themselves. So forms of protection that are made from this soft and kind of comforting material. This idea of quilting being this kind of warm hug, but also this work of art that serves as protection. So guys, thanks for hanging with me. That is Memphis 2021. I am, like I said, it was a lot of artists to get through, but it was a joy to do. And I absolutely love every work of art that's in this exhibition. One thing that I want to ask of you, now that you've gotten to know these artists' work, first of all, come see the show, experience it for yourself, support these artists, get to know them, show up when they have exhibitions, show up when they give talks, get on their mailing lists, and, you know, buy their work, support them, keep these artists working and living in Memphis because they are contributing so much to our city and our, you know, our city's identity. I think that we all kind of have a responsibility to them, at least to support them and be there for them and congratulate them on the beautiful work that they've contributed to this show. Tune into their programs. I encourage you all to check out our website. Go to the calendar page because a lot of these artists will be giving Munch and Learns, Talks at 2, all different kinds of things, and introduce yourself to them. Go to their websites. Any of these artists, if you just search Julie Pierotti, Memphis artist, they're on Google, either their website or their Instagram page will come up. Go do that and see more of each artist's work. And like I said, support them in every way that you can, because I'm so proud to have all of these artists here and definitely proud to have them at the Dixon. So there's always more to come. Memphis 2021 will be up for 7 weeks, I think. but through our Mallory and Wurzburger series and all different types of programs that Margarita puts together, we have lots of artists on the, you know, that will be featured at the Dixon in the future. So thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions if you may have, and I'm sorry I talked so long.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. You have a lot of really great comments. If you see them on the chat, everybody's just very thankful. I have been here since 2007, like Julie, and I told her this yesterday. This is on my top 5 favorite shows at the Dixon. It is fantastic. I went in there and I screamed so loud that the guards thought something was going on. I really love it. The color is just incredible.
Margarita scared the guards because she was squealing with delight. Yeah,
I did. Know that there's at least 6 lunch and learns that relate to this show, so you can just join virtually. There's 6 of the artists in the show that are giving talks. We have a talk or 2 with Debbie in Pacheco in 2 weeks as well. There's just many things to come. You have, you know, comments, Julie. I don't see any questions. I see, thank you, Julie, fabulous show. So happy to be included from Meredith. Mary saying such a lovely show. Thanks for this wonderful overview. A pleasure to be included. Carrol McTyre saying, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Dixon. Can't wait to see the show in person. Paula, hi, Paula. Great job. You're so awesome, Julie.
Oh, guys, thank you.
You know, I think it would be very sweet. I hope also, and I know that a lot of the artists know each other, but I think it's really sweet that you guys, even if you don't know each other, you are hanging out right now at the Dixon. Yeah. You're all over there hanging out. So I hope you get to connect more at this point and use this show as, you know, the starting point for some new collaborations and things to come. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You know, Julie and I are always, you know, here to answer your questions, and just reach out to us if you need anything. And we really would love to hear your feedback as you go see the show and come back. Just send us your, there's Kevin Sharp in his car.
Oh my God, Kevin, I see you.
Be careful. Thank you for joining.
Kevin, be safe.
Be safe. All right, everybody, have a great Sunday, and we'll see you at the Dixon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Julie.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Margarita, thank you.
So, thank you.
Sorry I talked so long.
There's a lot of artists, and they're awesome.
I know. There's a lot to cover.
That's great. Yes. Okay. No. Okay. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
We'll talk tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. Bye.